back to our next podcast. This week you are going on the road with us because we are taking a little road trip. We've got our road trip lunch here. So we actually just are on our way back from doing a site visit. If you've never gotten catering from us before, site visits are something that we like to do before offsite weddings if it's at a venue that we've never gone to before. And I think for us personally, I'm not saying that every caterer does this. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. But for us personally, we just like to get an idea of where the kitchen is or the prep space that they have for us, if we need to bring some of our own equipment or if it's already there for us. Big thing is like where we park. We always want to know where we are supposed to park.
So we're not getting lost.
And that's the biggest thing too, just to make sure we know where we're going the next day so that we're on time and we have plenty of time before the wedding starts to get ourselves ready. So we figured that this week's podcast we would talk to you about tips for offsite weddings. And obviously this will be from our perspective, so you know how we do things. It's not to say it's the only way that can be done. It's just some things to hopefully have you think about when you're planning an offsite wedding or something that might not be at our venue or a venue that provides everything on site. So, with that being said, what would your first tip be?
My first tip would probably have to be know your venue and what they offer for the caterer. So, the reason why I'm going into it is that it's like, okay, ice bin. If there's not an ice maker there for the caterer, then how are we going to know if we need to bring ice or not? And then we show up and there's no ice machine. So just little things like that when you're looking at getting an outside caterer, because it's just a venue. Just like take note of those things when you're going on tours and stuff, just so, I mean, we do site visits, but other caterers might not do site visits. So it's always good to like take note of those little things like ice bin. Do they have a warmer in their back? Do they have a prep area? So like plated dinners. You can't prep a plated dinner if you don't have a kitchen.
Right. Big thing too is like the caterer like if you're having it at your house, obviously it's a little more lenient than at a venue, that type of thing. But yeah, for sure, I think that that's a big thing to know, because we do go to some venues where they'll offer like post-catering busing. So let's say you only wanted our dinner service and we were leaving after dinner, but your event's going till 10 or 11, and are you going to be responsible for picking up your garbage and clearing your dirty tables, or is that something you want somebody else to take care of for you?
Right.
Or, I mean, it could go the other way. I mean, I know some weddings will get just deliveries only, and that's perfectly fine if that's what you want it to be, but then just knowing what you're actually getting, so that on the day of you're not surprised and thinking like, okay, well, I got catering, but they weren't here. Well, if you got a delivery, then it was a delivery. So just making sure you know what every vendor is providing.
Exactly. And I know in our packages, it's very nice that we do include those types of things. And we also include bar. So that's another thing you don't really necessarily have to worry about. So certain caterers will do a little bit more. Some caterers will just do the food. But we try to really offer kind of everything food-wise that you would need for the day, like coffee even.
Yeah. And it'll all be specific to your venue too.
That too,
because we do go to some venues where like they provide a lot of it, so we don't need
and
to.
water.
Yeah. But yeah, just kind of piggybacking on that idea of like knowing what you're getting from who.
Yeah.
I also think that sometimes it's better if you're having an offsite wedding to prep too much, if that makes sense. Like making sure you're prepping ahead, because it is a lot harder to find things like tents are one of the big things you want to get right off the bat, like right at the beginning. There are limited tent options. There are limited tent companies. Same thing with like any rentals. I think it depends on who you go to, and there are some great rental companies in our area, but to me, I would always want to be planning a little bit ahead, just because it's not like a venue where they have stuff on hand. Like you have to go and get all these different things and bring them in.
Yeah.
But I always think that like there's never too many questions. Even if you feel really stupid asking them, at least you know the answer. You feel comfortable. Like you're doing this once. Allie and I do this multiple times a weekend. So we always tell our brides, you know, we'll have some that call us and they're like, I'm so sorry to bother you, but like, no, this is our job. This is what we're here for. Like, we do this all the time. You do not. So ask all the questions. And even if it's a dumb question, even if you're afraid people are going to be like, are you serious? What does that mean? I think it's necessary to just make you feel comfortable and make sure you know what your wedding day is going to be.
Absolutely, yeah. Speaking of, while we're on the road, Bree, let's talk about our driving pet peeves while we're here driving. So
Something just happened that you're like, what the heck?
No, but this is one of my driving pet peeves. When people don't use their turn signals.
Okay.
And they go in and out of lanes.
Mine would be what's happening in front of us right now, which is when two trucks get next to each other because they think that they can pass each other and then they can't, and then we just kind of come to a stop. So that's fun.
And the loud roads in Pennsylvania.
Oh, the potholes.
I think though that like everyone complains about the roads.
Yeah.
Like I feel like if you live in an area.
No. I used to live in Kentucky. The roads were phenomenal.
Really?
Phenomenal. But they didn't have snow, so they didn't have salt everywhere to rip up the roads. So I guess that was a thing, but they had all beautifully paved roads.
I'm very jealous.
Actually, that kind of is a good segue.
It really is.
On road trips, because that's another thing you definitely want to consider is like, will your caterer even travel to you?
That's true. Delivery fees are a thing.
Delivery fees were even like out of travel zone. I know, like for us specifically, we usually go within like a 45-minute radius. After that, it's some caterers might go shorter distances, some might go longer distances, but making sure you know that, so you're not like booking everything banking on a caterer and then they can't because they can't travel to you.
Right. You wanna, if you have a caterer in mind that you really, really want, then look into that kind of stuff too, because they're just one phone call away.
Yeah. I think if you get all your vendors right off the bat, then you're in pretty good shape. Like the small details can come later. The menus can come later. The colors, the flowers. Well, as long as you have a florist, but like your actual consideration that you have to think about when planning an offsite wedding, because like if it's an outdoor ceremony,
Yes.
if it's a lot of walking, if you have various areas. I'm super excited for our wedding tomorrow. They have a different area for cocktail hour than they do for the rest of the reception.
I love that.
So if you're having to walk, like shoes are a consideration. Are you going in grass? Do you need to get those heel stoppers so you don't like
Heel
fall
stoppers.
into the grass?
Here's my thing with that. I always wear like a chunky heel anymore
Mhm.
because I'm like, I have
never know.
no idea where I'm
Yeah.
going.
Yeah, you never know. But you know what I also think a lot about too is I think it's very important to tell your guests if it's an outdoor event.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Because like for instance, even at our venue, you can have an outdoor ceremony, but then the rest is indoors. So, you know, you might have picked a hot day and people dress as if they're going to be in air conditioning and then realize that like, oh my gosh, we're sitting outside for a ceremony. So I think
And then they get super mad and then you're like,
yeah.
your guests are angry,
Yeah.
you're angry.
Yep.
You don't need that.
No.
So,
I try to go with a layering approach. I don't know
Yes.
about you, but I definitely try to bring layers, wear layers.
I wear layers every day, guys. The office at Capriotti's is freezing in the
cool.
summer, really hot in the winter. So it's like I'm vice versa.
Yeah. Yep.
So like I wear dresses with the sweater in the summer, so people when I go outside to pump my gas after work don't see me in a dress and a sweater and be like, "What are you doing,
What is
girl?
wrong
It's
with
summer."
This girl? It's 90 degrees outside.
Yeah. So, and then in the winter I feel like I wear like small dresses, not
Yeah.
long ones.
It's definitely opposite in the office. I never know how to dress.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
What else?
That's kind of all the details really for offsites. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just little things here and there that you guys might not think about, but we're always here to offer you guys help, and I hope you guys enjoyed this episode
Yeah.
of traveling with Allie and Bree.
Got to go on our road trip with us. Learn
I
about.
kind of liked it.
Yeah, I think we should have field trips, and we should do our podcast on field trips from now on.
Yes, petition for Bree and I to go on podcast field trips all the time.
Oh my gosh, it would be fantastic if we could just travel around looking at different venues. I love seeing different venues.
Yes.
I love it. Everyone is so different and unique.
Absolutely.
And like the chandeliers for me. When I walk
Those
into a place,
chandeliers, I was not expecting that.
Yeah.
Gorgeous.
Yeah.
But I was like, wow, I wasn't even expecting
Yeah,
that.
when I saw those chandeliers, like, well, that's like the first thing I look at when I go into a venue. I'm like, okay, the space is really pretty, but the lights, what do they look like?
Yeah.
But yeah, well, hope you guys are having a great time planning your weddings, and for sure send us any questions if you think of anything. If you want to know any tips or anything we didn't cover about offsites, let us know those as well. Like we said, we do this you
Every
do this
weekend.
one time, we do this multiple times a weekend, so use us, use your other vendors, make sure you're following their expertise. They really will point you in the right direction.